Good morning, everyone. It is a solo pod today. Unfortunately, Scoop is, well, good for him. With the job that he just got, he has to move for that job, so he's going to check out the place that he's going to be staying today. He could have done tomorrow, but I think, with how crazy this week is, probably better to get this video out as early as possible, and hopefully Scoop is back with me next week. But we're going to do things a little bit differently here. We're going to go through my potential, buy planning here, what's happening for me this week. There's a lot going on. We will still tear apart Scoop's team straight after this, and then we're going to go through each of the players, just myself, and we'll deep dive a little bit more into some of their stats, some of the over 60-minute stats and stuff like that, and give you the best opportunity to get things sorted into the next bunch of weeks. So obviously now in round 15, it is getting 17 on the park. Well, for me, that's the hard part this week. Without doing 2 or 3 trades, it's probably going to have to be 3, especially if Brown is out. So you can see here I've got Cleary in the red. He's gone skis over the next sort of 6 weeks there. JDB out this week as well, and I've got Brownie in a bit of a weird color. Talau, we can remove him thankfully from his terrible color there that we didn't like at all, considering we weren't sure if he's going to be available each and every week. Still round 16, I think there's a bit of job security issue, but Brent Naden has actually been taken away from the reserves. He was 18th man last week. Talau, they're pretty happy with his game, I think, and he's now just the sole center option. It looks like Kapoa is actually playing on the edge, so he comes on and Bateman moves into the middle and still plays that 80 minutes. So very exciting news, I think. And they do need that kind of 13 that can pass the ball and can do a lot through the middle. Trek one way, he's obviously good with the crab run, the palm off, and it has a good passing game. So I think that's a great option for them, and probably means that Bateman's a pretty good buy, considering he can play 55 minutes on an edge, and then get these work rate up through the middle, and it just has his hands on the ball more, means great things. So my squad at the moment, you'll see there Robson, JDB, Lukey, Drinkwater, Cleary, definitely out. There's 5 guys, potentially Brown out 6, leaves me with 15 available, and that includes Talau, Oluwapu, Billy Smith as potential pretty average options, to be fair. So probably going to have to make a couple of trades next week. But guys, when you're looking at your sides, make sure that you are trading guys in that are going to be playing in 16. Unless you have sort of that 10, 11, it would be nice. If you have that already, then you can make trades that that aren't going to really change that number. So you might be you could trade out a guy that does play in round 16, whether if you're not too keen on Helam Lukey, with his bye this week, and you need to get you need a scoring player this week. Let's just say you're trading Lukey for a guy that does play in 16, but Lukey does already. Something that I'd be looking at personally is potentially Helam Lukey to Bateman. I'll get that score from Bateman this week, which will be really good. Hopefully it's a 50 plus. And then I'll be playing Bateman over Lukey next week anyway. And yes, and then I might make Origin, and that means Lukey plays decent minutes again. But still, I think that Bateman's going to be the better call overall, and he will be a keeper longer term. If you're looking at my round 17 team, not sure what we're going to do with Hines at the moment, because with Cleary going down now, maybe we just have to hold on to Nico there. Obviously, Brown, if he's out, he's going to be traded. Cleary, I'm trading him as well this week, and then it's Talau and Oluwapu. So we're not missing a lot in those cheaper guys there, but Buller definitely going to be in the side. Hines at the moment. So if we do bring in one of a Bateman, that just creates another out, and then we have to make decisions based on those cheaper guys from there. Potentially Oluwapu is our player in 16, and then we trade him out in 17. That's 2 more weeks of price rises. If not, he gets held, and we just kind of sneak our way to 17, I'd say, in round 17. 16, 17 will probably be a good number there, especially if you're trying to hold some guys that are going to be playing 16s, like these Tigers guys, like the Sharkies guys, all these types of players. They'll be there in round 16, which is going to be really cool. Actually, no, Sharkies don't. Scratch that. Take that away. Dogs, do they? Where I don't even actually need dog. Yeah, I do. Dogs play. So a host of those teams do play in that round 19 if you are holding them through this one as well. So Tigers, I believe, are one of them as well. Yeah. So Tigers, the Dogs, they play 16 and 19, which is really important. They missed 17 in that one. Very, very good news there, obviously. And they're the types of moves you would want to be making. But you need to be thinking about this round, obviously getting 17 on the park. 16, getting somewhere around that, 11, 12, 13 could potentially work. Like if you have 12, I think you'll make some ranks. Obviously, 12 good players will be better. I'll still have the odd cheap guy, Oluwapu, Talau, Bill Smith, those type of guys likely in the side. And then round 17, getting close to 17 on the park, I think is going to be the best way to do it. And then, yeah, especially with the amount of trades we have left, if you can hold, if you bring in a tiger or a dog, these types of players, then you can keep them in your squad till round 19. Cop a little bit of a hit in 17, but, not trade as heavy through 18, 19 and get yourself in a good position there. So that is my buy prep there. Let's remove that and go to Scoop's team. So let's launch in. So everything has updated, guys, into the end of round 14, which means we can see all their trades. So he went Payne Haas and Isaiah Katoa to Isaiah Papali'i and Turpin. So end up being pretty good trades. Papali'i scored just a little bit above Payne Haas. Obviously, it was an interesting one, given he backed up and played 56 minutes. He could have really hurt Scoop in this one, but that's those two trades did net him a few extra dollars in the bank, and Turpin scored really well. You can look at his overall rank history as well. So he started pretty well at the 7,600. By round 4, he was 5,000. By round 5, into 1,600. And it's just been slowly improving from there. So right now, ranked 359 after round 14, and sitting in a good spot, considering he's only used 24 trades. We started with 36 guys, so he's one of those guys that's in a better position with 12 extra trades remaining. You can see he never really went large. He has never had a week where he went 4 trades. He's had 3 weeks of 3 and a bunch of 1 weeks, which has worked out really, really good. So if we're looking at his team into round 15, he misses out with DeBellin, unfortunately. He misses out with Nathan Cleary, who's out as well. And then in terms of our Cowboys players, he's got Drinkwater there and Dylan Brown as the other kind of issue, and Jack Bird, who potentially misses out as well. So he actually played with 16 last week, Scooby, which was an interesting one. He has Ben Trebojevic out as well. So Turbo, let's say Brown is out. Turbo, Brown, Jack Bird likely to be out. Then he's got Drinkwater out, Cleary out, and DeBellin out. So 6 players there that are going to be out. Similar to me. So comes back to 15 men, and you probably have to make a couple of trades this week. But that's fine for him, given he has the 12 remaining. If he used 2, 3, 4 even, I think he would be fine. So that's where he's at this week. Obviously, returns of Hopgood would have been Brown, would have been nice. But but that also means he's playing Garrick in the centers. Well, centers for Manly. Johnson there, you'd hope that he can come out and score pretty well. Other than that, the majority of his players are pretty good. Oluwapu there, he's not sitting there with the Tommy Talau or anything like that, like I am personally. So that's where Scoop's at the moment. This is my squad here. I'll just kind of have a look, having a count of all the keepers that I have, guys. So that's something I think you should be looking at as well, is, the amount of trades you have left. I have 10, 48k in the bank. Team value is at 13.75. So granted, that is going to be a lot higher than most of yours, obviously, because I have the higher rank, and majority of those teams that are up in the top sort of 10, top 20 are sitting at over 14 mil. So I'm at 13.75. Good thing to do, guys, is count the keepers, the amount of keepers that you have, and then work out how you can get to 17 really, gun players in your squad. So I have 2 keeper hookers at the moment, Robson and Cook, which is cool. In terms of the mids, I have 3 mids that I would class as keepers. Obviously not the top keepers there, but that's fine. Hopgood as the keeper in my edge, and I have 2 mid-range guys. So have a look at that. Obviously there, so I'd say 1 keeper in the edge position at the moment. I have 2 half keepers, obviously, injuries and the like, but we're talking about sort of money, the money that they hold. So Cleary and Hines, definitely. Johnson would be my 3rd half keeper. Brown would be my 4th half keeper. So I have 4 of those, and obviously I'm probably going to want 3 by the end of the year, not 4. But things are going to change, obviously, with Cleary going down. If Brown is out, then I'll definitely be getting Moses. If he's not out, then that makes that decision a little bit harder, but still likely that I would grab Moses in that one just for a great score next week. So 2 extra keepers in the half position, 1 down in the edge. Center, we've got Lemuelu and Manu, which is really, really cool. In our wing fullbacks, you'd currently say that Teddy and Drinkwater are the keepers that we have there. So what I worked out, it was ended up being 14 keepers in the squad, and then we had 4 mid-range guys at 500k up to 650. So Liero, Lukey, Nickel Klukstad, and also Buller, which is really cool. And then some of the cashy, cheaper guys in Billy Smith, Oluwapu, Tommy Talau, and that is all there. So that's where we're at in the squad. So 14 keepers, 4 mid-rangers, leaves you at 18 guys. All I would need to do from then is probably need 1 cash cow left. And that's kind of the reason why we're looking at this, guys. It's just, are you going to be selecting Samuela Fainu? Are you going to be selecting Turpin? There's a bunch of different cash cow generating guys that are obviously going to play over the next few weeks and can be very helpful to your side, but they're going to make you some more money. And if you're sitting at that 13.75 like myself, then it might just be you need one more cash cow to make things right, and obviously not have any of your guns lose like 200k and then be injured or something like that. If they lost 200k like a Cam Murray, you'd probably be trading them out anyway. So that's definitely something to think about for your squad, guys. And if you're a bit lower than that, you may need 2 more cash cows. So that's where you might need Fainu and also a Turpin. So definitely have a look at that, guys, with your squad and where you're at. So count them up this week and make your decisions according to that. And obviously, when we find out about Brown tomorrow, I'll be able to make a more informed decision around him. Let's go Jack de Belin. So he's someone that I think you can hold this week. If you have a lot of issues in your squad, then he's definitely a hold because he is that gun keeper. You're looking at the scores that he was providing and putting up before this 39, and he had a bit of a shock at that game as well with 3 missed tackles. And obviously just a really low starting to the game. 1 penalty, 3 missed tackles, not great. But a massive second half until he got injured. He would have ended over 50. And you see all the scores there, 50 plus, 60 plus. And we know that he has been a gun keeper in the past as well. It's not just this year. This is kind of back to vintage Jack de Belin with the amount of tackles and effort that he's putting in and getting his offload a week, getting the big run meters. So when you're looking at Jack, he's owned by a lot of people. I think there will be a chunk that do sell this week, but I personally will be holding him. We knew he would have been missing round 16 anyway, and if you can hold him through these 2 rounds, you're going to come out in round 17 and be very excited that you still own Jack and be able to get his 60 plus scores. There's not many guys that are able to average that at the moment, so I think Jack is a hold in your side. Mitch Moses. So you look at him there at 826k. It's pretty expensive, but he is averaging 61.7. So he is priced according to where he is scoring. He has 103 this year, and he has a bunch of 70. So that's something that's pretty exciting and what you want to be looking at. 79 in round 12, 73 in 13 then. Obviously had his bye last week and will be ready to come out and dominate. The biggest thing with him is obviously his kick meters and his ability to kick goals and put on tries and score them. So he scores across the board. He gets tackle breaks each and every week. He gets the odd offload. In round 12 he had 3. The biggest issue with him is the fact that he is going to be highly owned. So if you don't grab him, there's an issue with that. If he comes out and gets an 80 or 90, you'll be very frustrated with that. The games over the next few weeks are Dogs, Manly and Dolphins, followed by their bye in 18. Then you've got Warriors, Titans, Cowboys. So pretty exciting schedule for him. There is a little bit of a worry that he might make Origin. I personally think he won't. I just don't see a world where Hines is, everyone's calling for Hines' spot in the side. He makes the bench and in a role that's not really suited for him. I doubt he plays bench again. So would you drop him completely out of the side? Or do you just play him at 7? And I think that the likely option is he plays 7. I think second option would be Reynolds, and I think third option would be Moses. But you do have to obviously look that Freddie selected him in 21. But if you're sitting with sort of that 9, 10, 11 trays and you trade him in, and he happens to be out next week, then you can obviously do what you please with him. He would likely be a sell at that point, I would think. Is there a high chance that he backs up in 17? He has to buy in 18. Then there's issues from there. It's a tough one, but I still think that his score this week is going to be so worth it. Just in a fairly tough week with a bunch of the big dogs out. Captaincy option as well. Moses would be, if you don't have Hines, then Moses would be a great selection. If Moses then made 7, and if you traded him in and you have Hines as well, then there's likelihood that Hines doesn't play. Like I don't know if you can really drop Luai. Moses would be the guy that can direct them around. He can kick to corners, do the job that Cleary would be doing, and Luai can be that runner and obviously short passer to Liam Martin and Crichton and the like there. So you might end up with Hines in your side in round 16, where then he would be a buy, or if you own him, then you're only missing out on one of him and Moses. So I think either way it's a catch-22, unless it went Moses and Hines, but I definitely doubt that. His scoring this year is a tiny bit above what it was in previous years, but I also think he's a better player this year. So that's something to note as well. He's not the flat track bully that he was. He does have some lower games, but some of them were against solid sides, obviously in Broncos, but he had a low one against the Titans at 29 there as well, and a 39 against Roosters, who weren't very good at that time either. So really, he usually has a lot more lower scores than that, and that's why his average is so much higher, because he'll mix the big ones with the lower ones. This time he did not. All right, let's talk about Fainu there. So -3 break even is nice. He's not owned by a lot of people this week. In a very tough mid position, I can understand why you're looking at him. It says that Kelma Tuolangi is going to be back in round 17, but does he get picked? He hasn't been playing that well this year. that is something I think you need to think about. He's scoring at 47 in 77 minutes. Can he get those big minutes again? I definitely think he can, but at a minimum, you'd say about 65 he would get. And, potentially like Ben Condon or something like that comes into his spot for the last 15. It could definitely be an option. His scoring was really, really high last week. He had 27 tackles, which I think is going to be pretty normal for him, somewhere around that 30 mark. 3 tackle breaks, 2 offloads to hands. So there's 8 points in the offloads, 14 between the two. He had the two missed tackles there, which I think is going to be pretty normal for him. Could potentially go more some weeks. 91 meters gained, 1 kick defusal. So everything went right, and I really personally see him scoring around the 37 to 40 mark rather than the 47 on a weekly basis. If he averages 37 or 40, he does make a fair bit of cash over the next 2 weeks. So that's something. You obviously get the scorer this week. You get the scorer in round 16 as well, but I wouldn't be expecting the world. He is 250k though, so you don't need the world for him to do really well and him being a good player in your side. So definitely have a look at Samuela. He, as I said, in a mid position that's really, really tough, he definitely can fill a hole. It's just an interesting one now because we have all this cash to spend with Cleary and we don't have anyone other than Hines that we could trade straight to. That would be a good option. So, the need for getting some cash into your side, building some cash in your bank by going to Fainu is less important than it once was. But I still think he's a good option there. Someone like Fisher Harris, down to 547 now. So he's lost a fair bit of cash, guys. He started at 685. He got himself up to 701 and has dropped down all the way to 547. And the big issue here, guys, is obviously you've got the information bar here. He did his MCL in the 19th minute. Or 20th minute, whatever. 19th minute. He played a couple of more minutes in that round 5 game. He was scoring really well, 47, 56, 65 before that. Since he's returned from the MCL injury, he's gone 43, 45, 16 when he re-aggravated, and then 38 last week. And that was after a bye as well. So he got the big minutes there, 52, but just didn't have the vigor that he did in a bunch of those games. You saw there, surprisingly, in his return game after the MCL, he had 6 tackle breaks. So I'm going to say that's the anomaly because every other game he goes 0, 1, 2. Tackles have been a fair bit down, to be honest, on what he was doing in those first 3 games. So his ability to I suppose, work hard, I think it's actually been hampered with the knee. So he definitely could come out and go really well this week. The minutes were there. The minutes will be there again. But the 54 break even means you don't have to push this week. You don't have to grab him this week. You could go next week. Hope his knee recovers a little bit more and he does a good job this week. But if you definitely want someone in the mid position, you've got Fainu or you want to shore up your round 16 players now, then Fisher and 17 as well, then Fisher Harris is going to be your man to do that. And he's owned by a little bit of a chunk of people at the moment. I think that will grow this week for sure. Let's speak about Jesse Ramian. So 490k, if you decide to pick him up last week, then you did really, really well. He's someone that's I wish I had instead of Billy Smith. Let's just say that. And Jesse would have been a solid buy a few weeks ago. Obviously, we did we have Billy Smith? Yeah, we had. No, he had a buy anyway. So we could have gone for Ramian over Billy Smith, which would have worked out better in the end. He got to a really, really cheap price here. 473 was his low for the year, and then that 50 bumped him back up, which is really, really cool. So he had a lot of low scores in the middle part of the season there, and he did miss round 6. So he went 46, 70, 63, missed round 6, and he went 28, 15, 24, 21. So very low scores. And then back to sort of some of his running best. He had really low meters gained in all of those. And I would expect him to hit somewhere just above that 40 average. And you get him, obviously, with a 39 average, but he lost a huge chunk of cash during that time. When he got all the way up to 628, and then he's dropped all the way down to 490, he's definitely someone that could rise all the way back to about that 600 or close to where he finished last year at 587. So about 100k in there, and is like a borderline keeper. He plays 16. They missed 19. Do they? No. What they got? 17, sorry. No, then he's all good. They would have had all 3 of their buys. So he's definitely a great pickup, guys. If you're looking for a center for now, obviously for next week as well, I would be picking him up this week if you can, if you're looking at him there. Great option. Has just over 40 average, as I said, for his career at center. And that's a lot of years there. Harrison Edwards, he's a interesting one there, I suppose. Lowish break even, 462k. Has the 41.6 average with that massive score in round 11. Last 2 weeks is exactly what we would have expected. Thankfully for him and for owners, he had 1 missed tackle last week, which didn't hurt him too much. But the 37 and the 33 the last 2 weeks there. He pretty much scores 30 odd when he gets those minutes each and every week. And the PPM, not high at all. He just had that one random game where he scored the try and made ridiculous bulk tackles. And it's gone exactly how I thought it would go in those 2 weeks since. So he obviously made big cash. It's from 307 all the way up to 378. And then we're looking at him as a buy then. He's made 90k since then, or just below. So really, I think you'd find it really difficult to pick him in your side this week. But again, they have their buy in 17 and then one late, and you would have traded him out by then anyway. So he's the guy that's going to play the next few games for you there. Do a solid job, be a scorer, make a little bit of cash, but overall, I don't know if that's worth it just to get a number in round 16. But if you do own him now, he's a very solid hold, that's for sure. Let's look at Jermaine Hopgood here. And what we want to look at, I just don't see him going under 60 minutes here. So let's just pop those numbers up here. If you don't own him, majority of people do in the top 100. There's still a bunch in the top 5,000 that don't, 22.5%. In those over 60-minute games now, he has a very solid selection of games here of 11 of them at 67.7 average. So to have a guy like that not in your side, especially in the mid position, which is so difficult, I think would be a massive mistake. So get Hopgood in your side, guys, right now. His first priority, I doubt he makes Origin. Felice Kafusi should be back by that point. Anyway, Isaiah Papali'i, 689. We'll speak about him and Bateman. Papali'i is the cheaper of the two. If you're looking at Papali'i's scores, he obviously dominated last year and the year before. So you're looking at games where he plays the 70 plus minutes, which is exactly what you're looking for. He has obviously goes all the way back to 2018, but a 55 average there. And those two games at the Eels is when he really dominated. He's a better player than what he was back when he played for the Warriors. But you do see games there where he does have some lower tackles, the mid 30s, a few misses in there. Run meters weren't huge, which is obviously a little bit more of a ball runner now. But he has those games in him where he goes 40s and 50s. Obviously at the Eels, they put him in the best position possible to dominate, where he got lots of tackle breaks, he got lots of run meters, pretty much over 100 each and every game. You see the majority of his games now, though, where he's only just clearing 100 meters gained. You see there, at the beginning of last year, first 3 rounds, 193, 174, 158, whereas he only has one game above 150 this year, and that was game 1, which netted him a 60 fantasy points with 4 offloads, 4 tackle breaks. He's just not getting enough ball. They do cut him out a bit. That's the only worries there. He's owned by a decent chunk of people, so if you do jump on, it's still a pod, I would say. 20% of the 21% of the top 5K is great. The break even's still high-ish, but he's so cheap, and he's you only need him to score just above 50 for him to make some money and be a keeper. I think he's more of a 55 guy, which means there's pretty well 100k in value, and you get a keeper from him. So I think he's a great option this week, as well as Johnny Bateman, which we'll speak about now. Obviously, 45k more expensive there, Johnny is, but I'm really just liking what I'm seeing with him moving from the edge into the middle. And last week, you really saw that on show. Asu Kapoa had been coming on for Tommy Talau after about 60 minutes and playing that time in the centers. I do think Kapoa is a pretty good back rower, and I agree with the selection of Bateman coming into middle, being a bit more of a ball player, doing his job there, with Kapoa coming onto that right edge, and allows Bateman to come in and make more tackles and do a great job. You see here, last week was the second time he's got over 40 tackles. In round 4, the second game there, he made 45 tackles. He was involved in everything there, and ran the ball over 100 meters, which is he's done in the majority of games, but he had 4 tackle breaks, 3 offloads in that. In this game on the weekend, he got the over 40 tackles again, and he had 4 tackle breaks, 2 offloads. Big run meters there. So lots of good news for Bateman, and I think that there's a good chance that over the next sort of period here, he happens to score better than Isaiah Papali'i. He's that little bit more expensive. He has a lower break even, so he is the priority this week, and I think he'll be owned by him, and Ipap will be owned by about the same amount of people after this week. I'm personally looking at Bateman. We do have that extra cash available from Cleary, so you can go Cleary down to Moses. You can go one of your mid-rangers up to Bateman. There's a few options there. If I'm missing Dylan Brown and Cleary, I think I'll be going Moses and Bateman. I just think with the scores that he can provide, playing edge and playing some middle, if Isaiah Papali'i was playing in the middle, we know what type of scoring he can get. I think he'd be better in the middle for this Tiger side because he'd be able to get his base up, whereas last year and the year before at Eels, he was able to get a lot more attacking stats, which he's not getting here. So Bateman mixing between them both, and with the Tigers showing some form, I think both of those guys are going to do really well. Pick one and stick with it. Nicho Hynes. So if you are looking at Cleary being out, going to Hynes is obviously a really, really solid decision. You get the captaincy option this week, and that's probably the biggest reason why you would do it. Why you wouldn't do it is he has a 70-odd break even, and that's definitely something that needs to be of note. He's likely going to play Origin and miss round 16 and 17, and then 19 as well. Keep that in mind as well, whether you could go straight for Moses and only miss round 18 all the way until the last round there. So, Nicho, how much higher of a score are you going to get from Nicho than you're going to get from Moses? So, if you have Brown and Cleary, and you don't really have any good halves options for next week, then going Moses and Hynes, could work out well. Obviously, it would only give you one if Hynes plays Origin, but yeah, he's definitely the best scorer. He didn't play very well last week, apart from that one attacking stat, and he still got 64. He got 82 and 86 the 2 games before, with no tries to him. He has 2 try assists in those 3 games, which is pretty ridiculous, and 1 line break. 2 try assists and a line break, and he's averaging 75 over those 3 weeks, which is pretty crazy. So Hynes obviously a great option there. Jake Turpin, if you do need a hooker, then he is 100% the buy of the week. If you don't need one for next week, if you have Robson, then I'm not 100% clear on Terps being the best option. But as a guy that can score pretty well, I think he's going to be like a 40-odd guy. We look in the minutes where he plays sort of over that, let's say over the 60 there, and he does average a nice 48.7. So very, very clear. Obviously, that's a lot of games at hooker there. He actually has a few games at halfback, so we can remove that and just go for hooker there. And he's a 52.3 guy in 75 minutes. So, that score on the weekend was pretty high compared to where he averages out at. Obviously, the tackle numbers were pretty crazy at 50 for 1 miss. He's not a guy that misses many tackles. He has 6 misses against the Eels last year when he was playing for the Broncos. But other than that, his worst is 4, and he's mainly a 1 or 0 type of guy. So that 50 tackles is going to be fairly normal. He had a random force dropout, which he gets one in every sort of 12 to 14 games. Had a tackle break in there as well, which he doesn't get too often either, to go along with a few kick meters, which he sometimes gets. So I think that was a pretty perfect game for Terps. Can he do that again? For sure. Can they give him 80 minutes? Unlikely if Sanders Smith's there. I don't think they need to give him the full 80. Tell him to go hard for that 62 minutes like he did. Tackle well and pass well at a dummy half. Run the odd one. Kick the odd little bit. I think he can be a 43 to 46 type of guy and make a lot of cash up until Brandon Smith comes back. And then there's a decent chance that they use Brandon Smith as a 20 to 25 minute guy at hooker, and then he plays 25 minutes in the middle. So Turpin could still get that 55 or so minutes across that time and still make a little bit more money. But the biggest thing with Terps is you get him for the next 4 rounds, 15, 16, 17, 18, and he can do a really good job, score well for you, be a player in 16, 17, and also 18 when we're going to have a few guys out. Obviously, Eels guys out in round 18 is going to be still a round where you want to play him in your starting 17. So look at Terps as a great option. Ponga. Here we are. All right, let's go to fullback there at over 70 minutes. So Ponga there with a low break even, obviously had a decent score on the weekend there, which was good. Hilariously, he has only played 1 game over 70 minutes here at fullback this year. Ridiculous. So that's that. Obviously, he has scores in the 6th position, but they're less important now. So 1 game this year at fullback, 45 points. It was pretty solid. He was pretty low for a good portion of this game. He does come up against Broncos this week, which I think is something to note there. And then you've got Roosters, Penrith. So 3 games, which I think are fairly tough for him. So if you do want to grab him, he obviously covers wing fullback. He covers half. It's likely he's not going to play Origin unless Walsh gets injured. There's a chance they do slot Ponga in there. I doubt they pick someone like Brimson, who's just coming back from injury. So that's something to look at, obviously, for round 19, but they do have a bye anyway, so it doesn't really hinder much. In that one, he's just so cheap, right? So we know the scoring that he can do. At fullback, he's a 50-plus average guy, 52 in that time there. So if he happens to score that and he doesn't make Origin, he's got a couple 100K, 2 to 250K, I'd say, to make in there. Obviously, there's concussion risk. There's a lot going on there. He's owned by a lot of people in the top 5,000. So I personally would be missing out if he went nuclear and got a 70 plus. That would really hurt me. And potentially will hurt you as well. So he's definitely great. If you want a wing fullback or a half, heading into this week, obviously, is the right week to buy him. And then round 16, I think, will be a good time to buy him as well. Jack Cogger, the interesting one at the Panthers there. So let's look at he's got two different positions that he's played. He's played some halfback there. And we'll get him over 60 minutes there, which will take out the low one. But he has some pretty solid scoring there. Averages 40 at halfback. That does involve a bunch of games at what was he playing for? Knights there, and then the Dogs is the only times that he's played the big minutes there at halfback. And the big ones you want to look at are his 2019 scores. So he had a really good run of games there. He picked up a couple of tries, some line breaks in there. He makes good tackles for the most part. He's an 18 tackle guy for 2.4 misses. He's a big kicker of the footy and does run the ball a bit, which is great news. That's his halfback scoring, so that's pretty solid and would do a good job for you if you needed it. His 5'8" scores aren't as good, which means that he's obviously kicking less. He was kicking over 300 meters at halfback, which he will here for Panthers, and 170 there. So it's really not something you need to look at, I think, is the 5'8" stats. It's more those halfback stats. And then you look at this year, obviously, that game that he just played, the 64 minutes, he got 32 fantasy points, 1 try assist, 12 tackles for a miss, seems pretty normal. Obviously, you'd extrapolate that out to about 16 or so. Big kick meters. He did have a penalty in there as well. So it wasn't his best game. No tackle breaks, low run meters. Obviously with a week of prep, it's going to be much better. He could be a really solid pick, obviously, all the way through until 19. Potentially could play 20 as well if Cleary was to come back to Origin. I doubt he plays 20, so there's that as well. Definitely use Cogger as a solid pick in your side if you do need a half. I would personally go for Ponga first, but I still think Cogger is a great pick. Short term though, if you need a half, Cogger. If you need a hooker, then Jake Turpin. Dave Fafita, completely up to you now if you want to sell. I think he's a sell personally. I think it was a good chance he was a sell in 13, but I definitely didn't tell you to because of he was only likely going to miss 13, 16, 19. Best edge in the game. But this really hurts. So obviously what happened last week, the high break even, he's going to lose a chunk of cash. He misses this week. He's going to miss next week as well. Likely doesn't feature in 17. And he's going to miss 19 and then potentially has lower minutes in 20. So he's going to play like one game over the next 5 weeks. That's pretty yuck for someone that price. Obviously, if you have other fires to put out, like Cleary and stuff, then do that first. But Feeder, you can hold, but I still think he's a solid sell. If you're sitting there with 5 trades or less, which I know a lot of teams are in the top 100 there, which I'm actually going to show you now that that's updated with teams there. But Fafita could definitely be a guy that you want to move on from. Let's look at that top 100 teams. And Booze Clues has, so 36 is the total that we can have, guys. So he has 8 left. Team coming second is in the best position. So has 11 left. Well done to Beavers. Hooligans has 4 trades left. Is Dion in third spot, I believe. So not good. I think you're pretty cooked there. And did use 4 trades last week, which is a bit excessive. But you had Jerry Marshall King, moved him to Robson, who he misses this week. So those type of moves, it's like when you have that lower trades, I don't think you can do it. 7 trades left for Rhino. Same thing for the next team. We have 8 trades left. So most people are under 10. Brenton has 9 trades left. You got Dados has 5 trades left. Not good. 7 trades. So most people are pretty low, guys, in this one. And it's also very cool that I can slide down and my team is actually here. So that's cool. Top 100 season, NL Fantasy Analysis. I'm at 10, so you can see 26 trades used there. And you can do this for anyone, guys. You can have a search for any team that you want to in footystatistics.com, and then it just has a list of the actual top 100 teams here on the right. So you can look at my trades used. Obviously, that one trade last week was very, very helpful. I spoke about my rank history here last week. Actually, the big thing I wanted to show you actually was Boost Clues. So I showed you how big of a move I made in my squad. I was actually in a higher position than Boost Clues at round 5, I believe. Yeah, so he started at almost 30,000, went to just under 15, went to just under 8,000, and then went a good one in round 4, gets into 1,200. But in round 5 is 2,800. I was 1,200 after round 5, and there's just been all up from there. 551, 301, 132, down to rank 5. So that was a massive change from round 8 to round 9. What trades were there in round 8 there? Eligatoa, Lioro, Preston for Hines, Manu, and Oluwapu. So got a big score, obviously, from a couple of those guys there and moved him into a great position. So happy days. Round 9 trades are great as well. Tarpany, Horsburgh, DeBellin for Haas, Miller, and Warbrick. So when Miller was started going poorly, Warbrick was done. And then Haas with his issues there, that's when he traded and made those big moves. So well done to Booze Clues there. Just wanted to show you that one. Thought that was pretty cool. Helam Lukey at 553. So him with the slightly higher break even. I can understand holding, I can understand selling. If you need him as an edge in round 16, there is no reason why you should sell him. Definitely a good chance that Nanai is going to make Origin, given they have Jai Arrow out, Gornskis, Tom Gilbert, Gornskis as well. So I think that Jeremiah playing 3 games last year for in Origin, he had a pretty good return there on the weekend, much better than his previous games. I think that he will be slotting straight into that Origin side, and Lukey probably plays some decent minutes next week. What the worry is the minutes, obviously, and we know going forward that it's not going to be good at all. So he took off 27 minutes, did not return until the last 7 minutes. So it was very much an afterthought. He wasn't really needed, and I can understand why. Like, if you're in my position there with a lot of players out this week, he's on the bye. I want to hold on to DeBellin. We need to find out what's happening with Brown. If Brown is out, obviously longer term, I'm likely going to be holding Lukey. If Brown is out, if Brown isn't out, then there's a chance I do trade Lukey there. As he's for Bateman or something like that. It's not going to be super important. So up to you what you want to do with Lukey on that one. Dylan Brown, let's just wait until we find out our news on Dylan. Obviously not super highly owned, very annoying. 25 of us in the top 100 have him, and we'll find out more today, hopefully. Thing is with Brown, guys, is that it's not the automatic stand down, but the NRL it's discretionary. They can decide whether they want to sit him down. Good news is for Eels, they have named him. They want him to play, guys. So if the NRL doesn't stand him down, I think Eels will continue to play him, and they'll look after their own, I think is how it's going to work. So let's find out. After the court hearing today, it's just reading what happened. The actual official trials and stuff will be later down the track. It never happens straight away, even for higher profile people. It does take time. So I think hopefully by tomorrow or Friday, we will know from the NRL what they're going to do with him. Because obviously the Eels need to make their decisions as well as to who's going to come in and start, whether it's Dejan Arce or something like that. Think of it like that with Dylan Brown. Greg, I can't believe he got his Gornskis. I actually don't know much further on this, so up to you if you want to hold him. I think that, with Regan Campbell-Gillard being there, if it's a 1 week injury, I think he's going to be really important next week. But again, an injury for a guy that is a mid-ranger who's going to be, could be out for a few weeks. I think we need to try and find a little bit more info. If he's out for more than this week, then I think he's a sell. If he's out just for this week, then I think he's a hold. Hosking, I think he's a hold, guy. 649k. Obviously a higher break even, but he's going to be really important in round 13. So an edge that, yes, there's Bateman, there's Ipap that are doing great, but Hosking scored really well up until that score on the weekend. Obviously had his issue coming off after 31 minutes and not coming back on in 11, but 56 in 62 minutes the week before last, and then 31 last week. Wasn't great, but that was a bit of a shocker for him. Low run meters, 2 errors, 2 missed tackles, really not his type of game. I think he'll be better for it. He'll play big minutes next week, and I think you're probably going to want him in your side. So that's that. With Hosking, I think he's a hold. Scott Sorensen, obviously another guy that we looked at last week, 694k. Did go up that tiny bit more, I believe, after that good score. Yep, not ideal. Obviously 94, 55, 42 and 80 minutes. I think he'll be better than that this week. 3 missed tackles, 68 run meters was pretty crappy. So who knows what, if things change, if that changed a little bit because Cleary was out, but they weren't as dominant. There's a few things there. I just think you can avoid Sorensen, but if you want to trade him in, sure, but I would go Fisher Harris over Sorensen, they can score similar, and he's way cheaper. Mo Fodawaker, if you're just not stressed at all about a round 16 guy, then I think Mo Fodawaker is going to be the best mid-scorer this week. Apart from, if you trade in like Isaiah Yeo or something like that. But if you think Fodawaker doesn't make Origin, then he only misses round 16 from here, and then he can be a keeper for the rest of the season. So Mo Fodawaker, definitely a good one, guys. Big minutes last week. Again, 71 minutes there for 59 points. And apart from the game in round 11 where he got 48, he hasn't hit under 50 since round 6. So he's definitely a good guy to look at as well if you don't need a round 16 mid. Talk about non-round 16 mids at the cheaper end. Ray Stone, he played hooker last week for a good portion of that. Well, he's named in hooker anyway. Actually, will tell us here. Jared Wallace playing dummy half to start the game. Stone was lock. Yeah, that's what I thought anyway. When I read that and it said hooker, he was hooker, I was like, he didn't play hooker. He just tackled hard through the middle there. 55 tackles was crazy. So expect him to go down a little bit. I'd say probably around that 58 minutes like he played the week before. Some games he'll get mid-30, some games he'll get 50. So something to look at with him is he probably has 150k to make. I'd say if he gets the minutes, we know what type of player he can be if he does that. There's obviously games in here as well where I said those missed tackles come in, and if he gets 50 minutes, he can go pretty low. So that was a big high for him. I would be worried about picking him up, so I think you should avoid. But definitely, if I just wanted to cover him because he could be someone that does a good job and makes you some money. Sean Johnson at half, 817k, the massive score last week. We're not going to expect that to happen again. He has an 89 and a 95 across the season, but majority of his scores are sitting in that 60 to 70 range. So he's a great guy to come in and cover the great man. Cleary, if you need someone to cover that. Moses is obviously the other guy, but Johnson has increased in ownership this week. He's doing a great job. Misses next week, so again, if you don't need a half in round 16, then he'll do a great job for you. All right, a bunch more to go. Greg Marzu, someone at 651k, has been absolutely dominant in the wing fullback position this year. He has only a couple of lower scores, but his lower scores are in the 30s. When he scores a try, he goes pretty much 50 plus every time. The big thing with him is obviously the tackle breaks. He runs the ball so well out of trouble. So he's very similar to that of Dylan Edwards, and that he has that 180 to 200 meter base with tackle breaks. So he gets a 30 odd if he has a shocker. Then if he gets tries, he absolutely dominates. But the Knights, they play, as I said, similar, same as Ponga, Broncos, Roosters, and Panthers. I don't think it's going to be as dominant this week, especially with Broncos showing really good defensive fortitude there. That's why I think Ponga could have a little bit of an issue, but I think Ponga has more chance of doing well than what Greg is this week, like more chance of going big. I just don't see Greg scoring a lot of tries. We saw how hard it was for the Sharkies to score last week against them. Malatalo didn't get any tries last week, so he got a couple, the odd line break early on in the set, in their half, but nothing in the red zone where their defense was great. So Greg, there's something there. Obviously only missing round 19 from here, but something to look at. But do you want him? I'm not sure. Jermaine Asako is the other one, obviously scoring super well. He was a bit low last week until that final couple of plays, ended up at 77. So the last 3 games for him have been magic. He didn't score any tries in round 8, 9, and 10, which meant he obviously went a little bit lower. He had 1 try assist in round 9. But other than that, he's been super, super, super. You look at the start of the season, he had a 75 in there, a couple of low ones, an 80 and a 59. This is the first time he's gone 3 in a row, so I definitely think there's going to be a low one coming. He has 5 tries in the last 3 weeks, but when you look at it, it's against Manly this week, and it could be fairly decent scoring. He has a bye then, which is annoying. He has another bye a little bit later, obviously just after the bye period, but Para, Broncos, Titans, Panthers. Harder games there for sure, but if anyone can do it, it's Jermaine, and he has a low break even as well. So obviously have a look at him. Dylan Edwards, just as I was speaking about there, 724k, break even of 62. You could wait this week if you want, or you could also just grab him if you need a wing fullback. If you want to go Cleary to him, that's fine. But don't expect the world, but expect him to average 50 plus for the rest of the season. Just week to week, he could get 70, he could get 35. So that's that with Dylan. 3 more to go. Don't completely discount Jade Knockerball, guys. A wing fullback that's playing on an edge. He had a pretty bad game, I think, on the weekend, and he still got 36 points. So, 3 missed tackles there. He had 2 errors, so there's 10 in that. There's a penalty in there as well. So, neg 12. I don't think he'll be that high. That was his biggest missed tackles of the year, so that's something to note. I think 30 plus tackles and 100 meters is going to be pretty normal for him. He had 1 tackle break and 1 offload in that, which I think he can improve on week to week as well. So I'd expect a 40 from him at a minimum, and he has a low break even. So if you need a wing fullback who's playing on the edge, he kept the spot again this week. I think he keeps it longer term until, Vil Kickout comes back, and he's like a round 22 guy, and they have their bye in round 23 anyway, so he's a sell at that point anyway, given he's not a keeper. So he's definitely someone at wing fullback that you can trust to be getting a 35 plus. 2 to go. Eli Katoa obviously was more of a buy last week than I think he is this week. The 42 brings his break even back up a little bit. Made a little bit of cash, which is a bit annoying as well. Obviously it was 553 before he gained 16. 42 wasn't great. I think there's going to be games where he plays better. Sharkies this week, I don't know if that's the game that he improves on the scoring, but you expect somewhere in the 40s again. So definitely hold. That's for sure. Jacob Little to finish things off at 507k. The hooking position, 13 break even. He only got low minutes last week, and he would have got even less apart from Mbai going off at the end, gave him that extra 7 minutes. So he would have only played 43, and he was pretty well on 40 anyway. So that last few minutes didn't really help him. He's obviously very much an impact guy. He tackled a lot this week. Missed tackles was lower than previous. The last 2 weeks he's been dominant in the middle through the tackling numbers, and there had been the odd tries and efforts through there. But this week, obviously, against Panthers, that was a great score to be able to do that. But the minutes there are such a worry, and I don't know if you can pick him at 507k. He was more of a buy last week than he is this week. They have a buy next week. I just don't think he can do it. So, guys, I do really hope you enjoyed this style of video by myself. And obviously, I like it with Scoop as well. Gives it a little bit of a different perspective. But obviously, he'll be able to reply to a few things in the Discord as well. And we'll get that People Squad chat going as well over the next few weeks. I'll give you my Supercoach update in the next couple of hours as well. But as I said, I hope you enjoyed this one and you got plenty out of it and it helps you making your trades this week. Let's wait on Dylan Brown and go from there. See you later.